Hey, and welcome. Welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. Now, I'm wondering if you've ever been in a situation, maybe in your private life, but particularly in your working life, where suddenly you've realized that you were the last to hear the bad news. You've realized, things weren't working, but no one came to let me know. Or maybe it was because you suddenly became aware that your team isn't actually ever disagreeing with you. They're staying silent. And maybe those awesome casual conversations that you were having about what someone's team is doing, how they're planning for their holiday is going, those casual conversations have stopped. Or maybe you've noticing when you look around you that everyone is documenting every single thing. Like what they're doing is covering their butts. Yeah. Initially, you may have thought that this was people being very professional. When you've thought about it a little bit more, or maybe you haven't thought about it, it actually is a lack of trust. And when we're leaders, we often will go, oh, it's okay. They seem to like me. So we'll just get over this hurdle. Today, what we're going to talk about is whether people trust you and what their behavior is actually telling you about that. Because the interesting thing about trust is that it doesn't snap loudly. It's not like, yeah, we've got trust today, tomorrow, because there's been a huge collision of some sort. We don't have trust. It actually silently shows up in all sorts of behaviors from your team. I'm Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership and communication coach, and I'm all about building influence, building authority, and building visibility. That's totally my jam, and I work with leaders wherever they might sit in a business or an organization. We've got 5 key areas that we're going to look at today, plus I'll share 2 tools with you to help you to reinvigorate your skills in this area. So stick around. The first point is this: trust reveals itself through behavior, through the behavior of our team, not through feedback. It reveals itself through behavior, not through feedback. So people don't tell you things if they don't trust you. Well, maybe they do. They're less likely to tell you things if they don't trust you. Instead, they act. And it can be a silence. Maybe they're not involved in conversations the way they used to be. Maybe they're over documenting every single thing. Perhaps they're asking for your permission all the time to do things because they want to be able to document that. Maybe what they're doing all the time is seeking clarification because there's some uncertainty from you. Perhaps they're avoiding conversations that would normally happen that help you to develop rapport and get an understanding of each other. And as a leader, particularly as a new leader, we can often mistake this for hard work. We mistake it for, oh, they're just respecting me and my role. And that's not actually what's happening. Yeah. The second point is that control replaces trust when safety is low. Now, we've already talked about how maybe your team is over documenting, they're being silent, they're asking for clarification all the time. That over clarification, that sticking to the rules, those private conversations that they might be having with other team members on the side, all of those things are self-protection. They're reducing their exposure to you. Now, again, you might think, oh, They're hardworking. They're showing respect for me. This is professional. But the thing I want you to be aware of is that their initiative drops because they don't know how their initiative is going to be received. And so what they get concerned about is that the consequences of showing some initiative are a bit unpredictable. So I'll stay safe, I'll play small. I simply won't put myself out there where someone can see me and have a go at me because I don't trust them. Yeah. And that control that people demonstrate themselves, that self protection control, that's a whole heap better than contribution. It feels much safer. Now, as a result of this self protection behavior, it has a negative impact on your culture. It takes a big dive. You might be asking, well, why don't they trust me? Part of the reason that they don't trust you is our third point. Inconsistency breaks trust over and over again. We've talked a lot in the last few weeks about emotional and mental fitness. People notice your mental fitness, they notice that consistency. And when you show up as someone whose emotional regulation is all over the place, I don't trust you. It doesn't matter whether you're being fair. If you're volatile, that's going to break the trust. So it's all about who you actually show up as. And that emotional regulation is what builds trust, that consistency on both good and bad days. It's that consistent, predictable response, not always flat and monotone like that. You can have some variety, but they know they're pretty confident about what they can expect in terms of your response. We've talked a whole lot about that. So if you need to go back and have a look at some of the leadershipization topics that we've done over the last few weeks, or if you can't find them, reach out and we'll send you a link to them. Just let us know, hey, I want to talk about this emotional fitness, and we can send you the links to them. The fourth point is this: low trust creates transactional relationships. What's a transactional relationship? You do something for me, I'll do something for you. So what happens when trust is low is that people, they shift to the point, we've already talked about self-protection, but they shift to the point where they only do what the role states they should be doing. They stick to their lane. There's far less collaboration. So they're not talking with each other and collaborating. People don't get excited or share personal wins, things that they may have achieved that demonstrate that they understand the task and are on their way to achieving a goal. They avoid feedback. They're not asking you for feedback. But really importantly, neither are they giving you feedback, because they don't know how you're going to react to it. They don't know how you're going to react to it. Now, notice there that I use the word react, because when you don't have emotional regulation, you're likely to react. But volatile, all over the place, not sure. People can't trust you. They can't feel certainty. When there is emotional regulation, you're much more likely to respond. The other thing that people can do with low trust is that they keep score. Well, I've done 3 things for you now, and you've only done 1 for me. So I'm just holding back a bit. It becomes very transactional, and they take a safe approach. that self-protection, that self-preservation approach to every single interaction. And as I said earlier, what this does is it creates a distance between your team members. There's a lot less collaboration, there's a lot less casual conversation, and your team culture as a result of their lack of trust for you goes down. If there is conversation and they are collaborating, then there's a really huge danger that what they're collaborating about or what they're talking about is you. And it won't be positive, it will be negative. Hence, the culture is impacted. Yeah. Number 5, the 5th point is this: trust grows when leaders embrace honesty. Well, what does this mean? Like, your team need to know that you will handle discomfort, that you will handle being challenged without retaliating back at them. They need to know that you will be honest with them. However, you will allow them to be honest with you. So if you can demonstrate that you handle that discomfort, that you handle being challenged without retaliating, if what you can do is demonstrate that you're not going to punish honesty, and that to have a disagreement is safe, it's okay to disagree, and that bad news isn't about blaming people. Like, oh, you brought me that bad news, well, it must be your fault then. If what you can do is demonstrate that we don't always have to agree as a team, we can disagree, we can comfortably challenge each other. And it's really importantly, and I know I'm banging on about this, but I'm banging on because it's so important. If what you can do is manage your emotions and you're doing that in an honest way, then your team is likely to look at trusting you or beginning to trust you all over again. So, what are some solutions? What are some things that you can work on straight away? Remember that this is your team doesn't trust you. Next week, we're going to look at what happens if you don't trust your team yet and how can we build up that trust that way. This is coming towards you. They don't trust you. So I've got 2 trust building tools here. The first one is this: it's a bad news test. There's nothing more certain to help you to understand whether your team trusts you or not by identifying when they come to you to tell you bad news. So ask yourself, and ask yourself this honestly: do people bring me problems early or late? Like, do they bring you a problem when something can be done about it and you can work together to resolve it or to at least minimize the damage? Or do they bring you a problem so late that there's nothing you can do except manage the fallout? Yeah. And then ask yourself this next question: what happens for me? What happens for me, you, not them, you? What happens for me emotionally when they do come and tell me bad news? Do you manage it? Do you manage your emotions? Do you go off? Do you point the finger and blame? Do you curse and swear and chuck things? I don't know. What happens for you emotionally when they do come and tell you that news? Now, the thing, just reflect on that. But the thing then for you to practice is a standard response when people come and tell you what's going on. Thank you for letting me know early. Breathe, breathe, smile, and then start to work on How are we going to deal with this? Because your goal here is to help your team understand that they are safer telling you the truth than they are hiding it. They're safer. That's your goal. They're safer telling you the truth. So if you want to help them to feel safe, you've got to manage your emotions. So asking yourself those two questions, do they bring me the problems early or late? And what happens for me emotionally when they do? That will give you a clear indication of how you're going with that. So there's your bad news test. That's the first one. The second practical tool that you can implement straight away is this one. It's about a consistency signal. Now, what we've talked about is that there are lots of ways that you can build consistency with your team. If you try and do all those things all at once, then it's really easy to fall off the wagon. So my suggestion to you is this: pick one behavior and just be really relentless about consistently applying it. So here's a couple of suggestions for you. Maybe it's that calm tone of voice. Maybe it's being quietly curious before you jump into judgment. Maybe it's following through all the time on the things that they're asking you about and the things that you say you're going to do. Maybe it's being really fair under pressure. Now, if you've listened to all that we've talked about today, you'll be starting now. There'll be little flicks going on, little flags in your mind going, yeah, could have done that better. Yeah, could have done that better. What will happen is that you'll either use one of my 4 suggestions for your consistency signal, that behavior you're going to be relentlessly consistent about. You'll either come up with that yourself or use one of my 4. Trust loves consistency of behavior. Trust loves predictability, so that what it can do, so that what your team know is, if I go talk to Beth about this, this is how she's likely to respond. Yeah? Predictability, by the way, doesn't mean you're boring. Predictability doesn't mean you don't have crackerjack ideas. Predictability doesn't mean that you don't share your emotions. It means that you return to calm pretty quickly to look to see, what are the lessons here? What are the gifts? How can we figure this out? Okay. Let's have a look now at a couple of reflection questions. I have 2 of these today. The first one is this: what behaviours in my team might actually be signals of low trust and not high professionalism? So think about the things that we talked about today. Listen to this again if you need to. But what behaviours? How are your team behaving? Are they over documenting everything? Are they avoiding those conversations? Are they silent in meetings all the time? What behaviours might actually be signals of low trust, not high professionalism? That's the first one. The second question, reflection question, is this: when pressure rises, so when the stress comes on, what version of me do people experience? What version of me do people experience? And how does that affect their willingness to trust me? Do you go into a flat panic? Is it loud and emotional and all over the place? Do you point the finger? Are you blaming and yelling? Are you sitting there calmly saying, let's get the people in the room that we need to make a decision here? What are you doing? And how does that affect their willingness to trust me? Now, this isn't about you looking, or I'll say this differently. The reflection questions aren't about you coming up with things that you can blame yourself for. Self-awareness is an awesome starting point for self-leadership, which is the ideal starting point for leadership and leading of others. Self-awareness underpins all of that we do and that we learn about in leadership intelligence. These reflection questions are designed to give you that self-awareness, because once you have that self-awareness, you can move, you can change things. You can look at, what do I need to be more of? What do I need to be less of? Yeah. So make sure where you can that you actually take the time to reflect, because that's where the growth is. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but the growth is outside our comfort zone. It's all about you being honest with yourself. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep reminding you about those reflection questions. So our key takeaways from today, what are they? Well, trust is built on safe, steady, consistent behavior from you. It's built on that. It's not about you being perfect. It's about your emotional maturity, which shows up as your mental fitness and your emotional regulation. You need to earn trust. And I suggest that you earn it through that emotional maturity, rather than thinking that you have to be perfect. Okay, a reminder that next week we're going to flip the coin and we'll be looking at strategies, or what sits underneath you not trusting your team yet. We'll come up with some practical tools, we'll discuss it, come up with some reflection questions, just the same as we have for this one. So thank you so much for being here. If you've got questions or comments, pop them on the platform that you're watching this on. Hashtag replay if you've replayed it. Look, if you want to connect with me about small group coaching, or having me come and work with your team, or one-on-one coaching to build your communication, your leadership skills, your authority, or your visibility, or your influence, reach out. The link to do that will be in the comments. Bye now.